hear reasonably well? You hear me reasonably well?
Yeah, really well.
Okay.
So I'm just one last positioning thing here. So I had, first of all, he's still connected. I just pulled the one letter. All right, he's still there. See, they don't want me, they want you.
Now that was the 21st century speaking to us both. That big whoa, you guys messed up with the technology thing.
All right. Okay, what? No signal. Hang on. I think I sat on something. Yeah.
Jeff, I'm getting a great view of your feet and
Well, in our fourth floor art gallery, this would be art, but no, I'm just kidding. Okay, here we go. So, I had asked Eboo to meet with us. This is a day where students had a paper that was due, and so rather than cover new ground, this seemed like a perfect chance for them to kind of go back over some things they've been thinking about this semester. I had sent Eboo a little bit of a snapshot of what our course has been about, some of the books we've been reading, including his as our first text, Dana Roberts' book on Christian mission, and then Paul Mitter's book, Theology of Religions, with some supplemental readings with that. I had shared with Eboo that the first individual paper assignment was for you to take a quote from Eboo's book, namely the quote that had to do with students should be exposed to interfaith studies as part of an undergraduate curriculum, and I've asked you to take a stand on that, and as I recall, some of you agreed with that, others disagreed, and of course that was some weeks ago now. I'm wondering where your heads are on that, and this would be an opportunity to engage Eboo in that kind of a question. Secondly, we did have another paper, as I said, due today, where the prompt was really having read some more things, including about 2/3 of Mitter's book on the replacement model and then on the fulfillment model. We haven't done the other models yet. To kind of develop a thesis where your thinking is now as a class on theological responses to religious diversity, on religious diversity from your own worldview, your own value-based worldview, and to kind of develop a thesis and maybe critique some of the other ones along the way. Meanwhile, in between those two individual assignments, the class has done a group project. There are 5 groups represented here, and some really exciting group projects. One visited Hindu Mandir in Bartlett, another Midwest Buddhist Temple in Chicago, another did a group presentation on dynamics of Christian mission in China, another did a service project on collecting clothing drive for West Suburban Paths, and then had a discussion about various religious traditions' approach to hunger and homelessness, and then finally we had a group that participated in a panel as part of our International Week that was focusing on the concept of coming to America, having been born or family from another country, and living in the United States and participating in a Catholic university in the U.S. And so those were some of the really exciting group projects, presentations, and so that's a little bit about what we've been up to so far this semester. The class still has one more group project to do, which will be due at the very end of the term, and I'm hoping some of them will do some projects that might relate, again, back to some explicitly interfaith themes or agendas, and again, that could also be a topic for conversation today if any of the groups have any questions or thoughts or looking for a little advice on some projects they may have in mind. So that's a little bit of background, and so now I just want to open it up. This is a group that loves to think on its feet, and so I did not give them a lot of leeway or lead time, Eboo, that you were coming today. I just challenged them at the very start of class to think if there was a question they would want to ask you or any kind of comment they want to make to you, that they would have that opportunity. So I thought it would be kind of exciting for them to be surprised. So here we have it. So that's all I wanted to say by way of introduction. Anything you want to say to start, or should we open it up to the students?
So I do want to say a couple things to start. The first thing is I am absolutely thrilled you are all taking this class. I do think, as you read in my book, that it is part of the definition of being an educated person and a college student and graduate in the United States in the early 21st century, that you are fluent in matters matters of interfaith cooperation, and your commitment in taking this class indicates that you have made that decision for yourselves and that you're on the vanguard of that. And in 10 years, I think that every college student in America will be taking a class like this, but know that that you are in the kind of batch of students that are doing it first. And so congratulations on that. The second thing that I want to say is that, boy, I miss being on Dominican University's campus. I had the great pleasure of serving as the Lund Guild Chair last year. I taught a class that was a little bit similar to yours in a way, and I loved being there every Tuesday morning and being on that beautiful campus and being in the classrooms that you're in and passing, what is it, the Crown Library, Professor Carlson?
Yeah.
And passing that beautiful library and meeting with students, and so you are in a special place, a place that I had a great fortune to be in as a faculty member for a short period of time. And the final thing I want to say is the person in front of you teaching your class is somebody who has played an absolutely central role in interfaith work in the late 20th and early 21st century in America. As an academic, now as a dean, as a strong supporter of the Parliament of the World's Religions and of the Interfaith Youth Corps. And when I was literally in your seats, 17 years ago, when I was 21 years old, and just having the first glimpses of an idea of an organization that would nurture young people as interfaith leaders, Jeff Carlson was one of the strong supporters of creating an ecology for youth programs and interfaith organizations to thrive. And so I owe Jeff a personal, deep debt of gratitude. And I want to let you know that you have in front of you a person who has been a pillar of this work for many decades. And the fact that he continues to commit to the nurturing of young interfaith leaders just tells you a little bit about where the movement is at and who Jeff is. So those are the three things that I wanted to say by way of introduction. What I'm really interested in is hearing your comments on the three areas that Dean Carlson kind of listed out. One is, I'd love to hear kind of different views on that one statement from my book. So maybe we can begin with that. Have a couple of students kind of stand up and shout into the tunnel that is Skype your view on whether college students ought to be encouraged or even required to take a class that deals with interfaith leadership and religious diversity. Once we have kind of a 15-minute discussion on that, maybe we can move to some of your views on Christian theologies of interfaith cooperation. What would inspire you as a Christian to be positively engaged with religious diversity? Maybe what would make you pause as a Christian in terms of engaging religious diversity? And if there are folks from other traditions, Jews or Muslims or secular humanists or Buddhists or Hindus or Sikhs, would love to hear you reflect on that theology yourself. And then finally, maybe we'll hear a couple of brief reports from the group projects that you're doing. So I think we have about 45 minutes. We'll take it in 3 15-minute chunks. And let's begin with some comments and views on the idea of college students taking courses that look at religious diversity and interfaith leadership.
Again, why don't you stand up and maybe even come a little bit closer so you can sort of be seen better, because I can't stretch this wire a little bit.
Okay.
Just sort of step up a little bit.
Okay.
Step up to the iPad.
More.
Say your name.
My name is Jasmine. I'll look here because he's there. And I read your book and I was really intrigued by it. I'm a Muslim, Palestinian Muslim. And when I wrote my paper, I disagreed with your claim that that we should have. I mean, I agree with it, but at the same time, I took more of a disagreeing stance. Like, I like the idea of having interfaith dialogue and interfaith, teaching practices on campus here, but I was looking more towards going for the older generation. I wrote my paper on, and Professor Carlson knows this, I wrote my paper on attending more towards the older generation, because if we pay attention to the older generation and teach them on interfaith dialogue, they will in turn teach the younger generation, because we get a lot of our proverbs and whatever from our grandparents, our parents. We learn what to do and what not to do from them, and we get a lot of our biased views from them as well. So I feel like we'll kill two birds with one stone if we focus on the older generation so that they can teach the younger generation as well. And the example I had for this was in my town. There was this ordinance that was being questioned for whether or not there should be a mosque built in my town, and I was up against about 50 to 60 old people, and I couldn't get to them the importance of emphasis on interfaith and mosque and having it established, and they just weren't having it. So I feel like if somebody would have been there with me to get them first, they could probably teach their kids and their kids, hey, interfaith is good, being friends with other religious people is good, and stuff like that. So I sort of would rather have that instead of college campuses first.
Right.
So
Very interesting point of view. Thank you for that, Jasmine. So let's get a couple of other points of view in the room, and then we'll have a discussion. I very much appreciate you stepping up first and offering a cogent view.
Who's next?
Well, I believe that college students are definitely a good starting point. I feel like the way that we are, typically college students are typically open-minded, and they go to college to find themselves and to help each other find themselves. And I just feel like that we, have a really great learning experience here, and that we have the ability to share others. And so eventually we will be the older generation. And so since we're like the growing generation, I feel like then we can teach, eventually when we have kids, in the next 20 years, 10 years, whatever, that we can teach them, and then it'll keep growing from there, because I think it just kind of takes time, I feel like, to settle everything in.
Great, thank you. What was your name?
Erin?
Erin?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Great. A couple of other points of view.
My name is Nikita. I also argued against in some sense, because if I remember correctly, the quote was what interfaith dialogue should be a priority on the college campus. I don't agree with the priority part, because I thought that it should be more focused on actual preparation for future and to enter the workforce rather than interreligious dialogue. I thought it was important to successfully function in modern society, but I do not agree with that should be a whole focus of the experience.
Great, very interesting. Very interesting. Great. Why don't we have two more students stand up on this, and then we'll engage in a discussion collectively.
Hi, my name is Claudia. My opinion, and I actually agreed a lot that college campuses are a really good place to begin an interfaith dialogue and things like that, but at the same time, I think I would be missing more of an introduction to this idea in earlier years, such as high school or even middle school, simply because not everyone in the United States has the opportunity to go to college, and we're kind of saving a really great message for almost the elite, if you could say it that way. So, yeah.
Thank you. Your name was Claudia, you said?
Yes.
Great. So let's get our discussion going right now, because Claudia, what you're saying is almost the opposite of what your friend Jasmine Becker is saying. So I'm interested in, Claudia, you responding to Jasmine. Jasmine is suggesting that we ought to focus on elders, grandparents, so to speak. And you're suggesting we ought to focus on grandchildren. So what would your response be to Jasmine's point that, she was trying to get, when she was speaking in favor of a mosque in her town, it wasn't preschoolers shouting her down, it was grandparents shouting her down.
Yeah. Should I come back up? Can you hear me from here?
I actually can't hear. Why don't the two of you come up a little bit closer and face off in front of the iPad?
iPad face off.
There's an app for this.
Oh, hi. Okay, so I guess my response would be, I agree that it would be beneficial, definitely to speak with the older generations and kind of try and sway their views a little bit more especially if they're very biased towards their own religion and blocking out all others. But at the same time, I think it would be beneficial at the same time to go for the younger generations, because the older ones, they're not going to be around us as much. And I mean, it's a morbid thought.
This is a few well-timed pets argument.
Sorry?
I said this is a few well-timed deaths argument.
Sure, yeah.
My response to that would be, like, I listen to more of my parents and then they would listen to me, I feel like that's how it is with, the younger generation versus the older generation. Plus, I also mentioned in my paper, a lot of the college students that I hang around with, on different college campuses, UIC, NIU, ISU, they're self-centered. They go to class, they just do what they need to do, and they come back. They're not interested in going to these interfaith cooperating practices. They're not interested in dialogue. They're not interested in anything. They're self-centered. So if you have this constant need on promoting this for the younger generation and forget the older generation, then the younger generation will never know, because they'll never want to know. Like, you have to have the want to do it, as opposed to being self-centered. And I feel like if we do it to the older generation first, no offense to any older generation, but they have nothing to do. So if we teach them, they will teach, we all visit our grandparents, we all visit, even our parents, we visit our parents when we're at school. And they would teach us, and then we would come back to school with this knowledge that they gave us. So I feel like a lot of these college students are just worried about the A's, worried about this, worried about that. They're not worried about connecting with somebody of a different faith.
Right, and in a way, Jasmine, that is borne out by the fact that it wasn't 50, 18-year-olds who showed up at this public hearing, right?
Right.
There weren't a bunch of people from your generation there, right?
Right, there was only one other person, and he was shot down right away. I was the only one talking for the majority of the time.
Okay. So I want to take this conversation in two directions. One direction is
Eboo, excuse me, we have another student who wants to chime in. Is that okay?
Oh, great. I can't see hands very well, so thank you for playing that role, Jeff. Chime in indeed.
My name's Sylvia, and I like the idea that Jasmine has, but in my opinion, I don't think that the older generations are willing to listen. Their minds have already been molded. It's not as flexible. They're not willing to take in new ideas, because half the time, back then, all these religions were way more conservative, and it's a lot different right now. When you're speaking to younger people, you're pretty much raising a new, older generation. I don't know if that makes sense, but it does to me. So
May we all have good health and get old one day.
yes.
I'm on my way there. I'm in early middle age.
So I feel that if we start right now and just set a new base, future generations will be way more accepting of others if we just instill it in each other at the moment. Because I don't feel that older generations are willing to. You can't force somebody to understand or to be willing to understand. I kind of feel like it's too late for them anyway.
Okay. So there's obviously many directions that we can take this conversation. I want to propose we take it in two directions. One is, Jen, are you saying something there?
No.
Okay. I want to
I
talk.
was thinking something though. You're really good.
I want to talk about the purpose of college for a moment, and this is kind of looking back to the two of the additional comments. The comment that the gentleman made right there. It's ought the purpose of college be to exclusively prepare people for the workforce, and what role does having fluency in religious diversity and expertise in interfaith leadership play in that? That's a really important comment. And do colleges play a role in our culture other than educating 19 and 20-year-olds? And the argument that I want to make, and I'd love for people to affirm this or argue against it, by the way, it's much more interesting when you guys argue against something, I must say, is Dean Carlson is there in front of a class of what looks like mostly 19 and 20-year-olds, right? But when he writes books on the subject of interfaith cooperation, they're read by all sorts of people, including Jasmine, the folks that might come to that community here, including that older generation, so to speak, right? So I want to just offer the idea that a college campus plays multiple roles in a society. One role is obviously the education of 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And I would like to submit that education has to be for the workforce, no doubt. But it's also education for citizenship. And again, I invite arguments in favor and against this. That a lot of what people learn in college is not just about what it means to be a good engineer, or a good fashion designer, or a good biologist, or a good doctor, all of which is important. It's also what it means to vote for certain candidates. Also what it means to read newspapers. Also what it means to participate in neighborhood meetings. Also what it means to be on the boards of nonprofit organizations. And it feels to me like that task of being a citizen is extremely important. And that college campuses play a role in nurturing it. I also think that the task of being a citizen and the task of being a worker have significant overlap. So, here at IFYC, we have a workplace of 35 people, but a good deal of what we engage in is conversations about the diversity of our own staff, conversations about the kind of healthcare plan we ought to have, conversations about the kind of holidays we ought to give. So those are things that deal with the workforce here at IFYC, but it also deals with the role that we play in the role that we as an incorporated organization plays as a citizen in our society. So we have a service day in our organization where every Martin Luther King Jr. Day, we participate in service as an organization. You can view that as being less productive because that's 9 hours or 10 hours that our staff would normally be working against the mission of the organization, but we view that as being a good citizen. So I'd love to hear people's thoughts on what it means to have a college education that prepares you both to be an excellent worker and also an engaged citizen and the overlaps thereof. I'd also love to hear thoughts about the role that college campuses play, not just in educating 18, 19, 20-year-olds, but also in creating a knowledge base for a broader society, creating a discourse that people from preschoolers all the way to senior citizens would ultimately be affected by. Thoughts?
I'm Brent. I'd first just like to note that you were talking about that it may seem that there are mostly 19 and 20-year-olds in college, but there are also those who are returning to college in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s. And so I think those people are just as useful catalysts, just as useful people who are willing to bring the information they're learning back to their homes, back to their families. I'm sure many of them have very tight schedules, they're very busy, they're trying to get a better job, but I'm sure that with their families, with their friends, they're still getting other conversations started, certainly about interfaith.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Oh, thank you very much.
I believe the purpose of college education should be to expose students to as many ideas as possible, because when you have exposed to different ideas, you can form your own views on issues. Instead of being exposed to just one, like your parents have, for example, which you want to share with them, when you know many different points of view, you can create your own and make your own decisions on who to vote for, what policy they're voting on for that.
Okay. So are you, tell me your name again one more time, please.
Nikita.
Nikita? Okay, great. So are you revising your earlier statement about a college education need to be focused on workforce development?
No, not really. I still think it should be more focused on workforce development, but I think being exposed to different ideas is still important. It kind of is secondary to your actual application for a job, but it's still kind of after.
Okay. Got you. Well, you know, Professor Carlson is also the Dean of Liberal Arts and Science, so I think you should work with him on this kind of multi-tiered approach to the college. Maybe you can help revise the core curriculum at Dominican. What do you think about that?
So much pressure.
We actually have an undergraduate committee that is the Committee for the Shared Undergraduate Experience, which I chair, and it's basically what should the curriculum be for undergraduates, core curriculum, other kinds of requirements, and it's supposed to have 4 student members on it, 2 from arts and sciences majors, 1 from business, 1 from education. And working with the Student Government Association, it's actually always been a big struggle to get students on that committee, and they vote on stuff. They decide what's going to happen. And so anybody in this room who wants to be part of that, talk to SGA and get yourself on that committee next year. It's meeting today, for instance, at 2:15. It meets and it does things. So if you have ideas about what college education should be, let's get you on the committee. Seriously.
Yeah. If I may take a personal tangent for a moment. When I was a college student, I got on every committee that I could, and not just because faculty committees were the ones where there were the best snacks, although that is true as well. But I thought to myself, why should somebody else be the person voting and making decisions on the things that I would experience, right? Why shouldn't I be that person? And I'm not any smarter than the average bear, but it's amazing what happens when you take initiative. So I just want to affirm what Dean Carlson said, is that it is remarkable to me the number of opportunities somebody has to shape their own experience at the college campus and to shape other people's experiences as well. So, does anybody else have thoughts about the role that colleges play in a society and the idea that in addition to educating people of all generations, colleges provide a knowledge base for society. Professors write books, professors give presentations, students give presentations and write books that can educate an entire society about important issues. What do people think about that?
I don't know if I want to talk again.
You're allowed.
Nobody else wants to talk?
Yes.
No? All right. I forgot the question, actually.
The role, Jasmine, stay up there because I'm going to come back to you in a second also about this next thing. The role that colleges play in society,
Oh, right.
providing of a knowledge-based broader society.
So, like, the community I live in, well, the people that I work with, the majority of them don't go to college or didn't finish college. And I noticed that when, especially with the past presidential election and the upcoming election for our mayor, I noticed that they don't really take the time to, it's mean to say, but they don't take the time to care for it. So they're not involved in politically either, they don't care for the news, international news, or anything else. And I feel like college has been important, whatever your major is, you can be biology, whatever. But college serves the role of teaching you how to educate yourself. I mean, yes, they educate you, but they still teach you how to educate yourself. Like me, I can go home and still be able to educate myself on watching, international news, doing my own reading on the candidates, doing everything else. And the people that I work with, unfortunately, don't do that just because they didn't go to college. I mean, it could be a bunch of reasons, financial issues or whatnot, but I think having that college basis is like a great jump.
Right. Well, I think that's an indication of the student. It's an indication of some of the priorities of a Dominican University education. Is that you develop your own appetites, if you will, your own energy, your own proactiveness about educating yourself. So thank you for that, Jasmine. Now stay up there for a moment, okay? Because I want to go on a second path here, and I want to actually take the example that you gave. Why is it that at this public meeting loss, there were more 70-year-olds than 18-year-olds, okay? And the challenge I'm going to give all of, by the way, let me ask you a question. How important do you think it is for young people to come to public meetings like that and to make their voices heard on matters that would affect the broader society? Just give me a sense by raising your hand. Do you think it's important?
Yeah.
Folks think it's important? Okay, Jeff, give me a sense of like the percentage of the class that's raising its hand.
I would say every single person.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. So I want to give you the word that I want to use here is leadership. People do things when leaders inspire them to do things. Part of what, in fact, I think the central definition of leadership is getting other people involved in things that you think matter. I'm going to repeat that. It sounds really, really simple. It might be the most important thing that I've learned in the last 20 years of my life. The central definition of leadership is getting other people involved in things that you think matter. Okay. So, if you go to a public meeting on the presence of a mosque, on whether a mosque ought to be legally zoned in your neighborhood, and you look around and you think to yourself, there are not enough young people here. Part of your job as a leader is to ask the question, how would I get more young people involved? Okay, so I speak to student leadership conferences all the time. And you know what the most common comment I get after my speech is? Somebody will stand up and they will say, but the other students on my campus are apathetic. How many of you might have been thinking that? Okay. So I've heard that so many times, I've come up with a terrible analogy. You want to hear my terrible analogy?
Yeah.
You gotta say yes.
Yes.
Please.
I just want to make sure we're participating with each other. So here's my terrible analogy. When a mountain climber looks at a mountain, that mountain climber does not say, why the hell are you there, mountain? The mountain climber climbs the mountain. Because the definition of being a mountain climber is climbing a mountain. The definition of being, hey, stop laughing in the front row. The definition of being a leader is getting other people involved in things that you think matter. By definition, they don't think that that subject matters. Your task is to convince them that it matters. Your task is to convince them that their participation in that public meeting, in that interfaith program, in that religious diversity class matters. That's what it means to be an interfaith leader. What do you all think of that? By the way, that's the best idea I've had in 20 years. I will write my next 10 books on the kernel of that idea. This is how you make it a career as an academic or a public intellectual. You have one idea and you write 10 books on it. So I hope you all next 10 books, all you need to do is remember that one sentence. The definition of being a leader is getting other people involved in things that you think matter. The definition of being an interfaith leader is getting other people involved in ways that positively engage religious diversity. Thoughts?
I think that's a great idea, but I just want to share something kind of personal. Like, I went to public schools my whole life, so coming here, this is the first type of experience I have when it comes to religion. And I just feel that if we worked towards not ignoring the subject of religions in public schools, we would get much further and more people would want to get involved.
That is a great point. But, can I say that? Can I say that? And there's a great point. What you are suggesting is that public school ought to take responsibility for getting people involved. What I want to suggest is you ought to take responsibility for that, right? Now, by the way, the what is always the easiest thing. The how is the difficult thing, which is what I will write my next 10 books on. Right? The challenge, it's easy for the mountain climber to say, my job is to climb the mountain. The hard part is the next 99 steps, which is the climbing of the mountain. You still have to figure out how to get the young people at that public meeting about the loss. You still have to figure out what conversations to have, what arguments to offer, what inspiration to give. That is really difficult. What's the knowledge base? What's the skill set? What's the story? That's the tough part. My job is to offer the challenge. The challenge is to say, you have to get people involved in this new thing, which is the positive engagement of religious diversity. Dean Carlson is doing his job. Dean Carlson's job is to teach this class. I'm doing my job. My job is to write the book. Your job is to get people involved. How would you get people involved?
Can I ask you, in the scenario I gave, as soon as the board meeting was over with, you just saw me and the 3 other people that were there, like they shook their heads and like, screw it, forget it, they threw their papers down, they left, and they didn't even stay for the whole board meeting, they just stayed for that like specific ordinance. And once they found that it was denied and they left and I stayed, I was like, well, thinking to myself, how am I supposed to fight a one-man battle if half of my team gave up already? Well, the majority of the whole team gave up. So it's like, I basically, like, it's hard to think about how to get my whole Muslim community involved, because once they hear the word no, they automatically give up all hope. All hope is lost.
Well, now we are on to the very challenging questions of how. You know what? One of the first things that a leader does is gives people hope. You have to offer a vision for how that situation can turn out better. You have to offer a vision for how that hurdle, even if it's not crossed at that point, is worth trying to jump over again. I mean, how many times do you think, I grew up in the Michael Jordan era of the Chicago Bulls. How many times do you think Michael Jordan missed his first shot in the basketball game? And he didn't say, well, screw it, I just missed my first shot. He said, basketball game is 48 minutes long. There's a lot more shots to take. I'm going to miss a lot of them, and I'm going to get some of them blocked. But I'm going to keep on shooting, and I'm going to get better and better and better. And first thing that a leader does is gives his or her team hope that even if the particular struggle is lost, it is worth engaging in subsequent struggles. So the question is, how would you do that? Right? How would you do that? And Jasmine, I literally want you to think, if you were in that scenario again, and you huddled with your team of people before the board meeting, what words of hope would you offer? Would you say, hey, this is definitely going to go our way. We're definitely going to win. Would you say, hey, we're outnumbered this time. But if we offer a voice that is graceful, if we offer a voice that shows that the American narrative is a narrative of welcoming people from different backgrounds, if we offer a voice that says, our boss doesn't contribute to this community, maybe of the 100 voices that say no, maybe 5 of those voices will actually have a second thought in the back of their heads. Maybe these Muslims that show up, maybe we ought to give them a second hearing. So you still have 95 people saying no, but you have 5 people saying, I'm willing to hear them a second time. Right? What words of hope would you offer? These are the kinds of challenges that are faced by real world leaders. Right? Can somebody help Jasmine out And I'm serious. Put yourself in that position. You're a young Muslim woman who wants to exercise the American constitutional right of having a place to worship freely in her community. And you know walking into that meeting that you are outnumbered 100 to 5. And you know that there's going to be people standing up and saying really ugly things about Muslims, about Islam, about a mosque in that community. And you know that some of the people around you are gonna want to give up after that single meeting. What words of hope would you offer that group even before the meeting begins? Somebody that we haven't heard from. Stand up and give us a sense of what you could do in that situation as an interfaith leader.
Somebody new. Now's your chance.
Well, I think I thought of something, but
Let's give somebody else a chance.
Okay.
We're gonna wait. And you know what? By the way, I can see about half the room, and I began my career as a high school teacher. I'm very good at calling out students. Who's gonna help us out here? All right, I am going to go with the young man in the purple hoodie. You're like right in my line of sight.
Okay.
Look up your name and offer a testimony. What should she say to her? Tell me your name.
I'm Edgar, and as an interfaith leader, I would say to go to your community that is most closely related to you. Like, you can relate to, like, our community. Like, we're all 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and I don't know. We can relate to one another and communicate with our parents, our grandparents, and see how they view our points of view.
Okay, I'm going to push you one step further on that.
Sure.
Tell me the exact, what are the exact sentences you would use? So I think this is a very, this is a great advice for Jeff. I think what your colleague is saying is, you know, let's get some more supporters at this meeting, and this class is a room full of supporters. What speech would you give that would encourage more people to come out to this meeting?
What speech? That's a good question. The speech would have to be about how people can change their points of view on a certain aspect of an idea that one is so narrow-minded about. Like, if, for example, your mosque, right, should be open because it allows for your community as Muslims to have a place for worshiping, and let the other people in the community be aware that there are other people besides them who have different opinions.
I love it. Those are two really important points. One is that people can change their minds, and two is that this community ought to be more aware of the diversity of its landscape. Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
I appreciate that. So, who else has that idea? What would you do as an interfaith leader to either get more supporters to come out to this meeting, to maybe change the minds of the people who have negative point of view on this talk, or to give hope to the people who already support you? That you know that they're climbing a steep mountain at this point, that they're likely going to face additional losses before they start to see some wins.
I think it would be best to get a group of people who would not directly benefit from, say, a mosque. To get a group of students that you're involved with, say even just, like if you're part of like the psychology club or something, just to know that you have a group of people who know you, and so you can go together and say like, we recognize how others would benefit by this. And so because we recognize what it means to live in community, we recognize what it means to help others find happiness and find passion in their life, that we recognize the importance here.
That's really powerful. Thank you for that. That dovetails with the theme in my book, Sacred Ground, right? Where I tell a number of stories of people from one community who stood up to another community. You remember some of those stories? Mike Bloomberg, the Jewish mayor of Europe, standing up for the Ground Zero Mosque, or a group of non-Quakers writing the Flushing Remonstrance, or a gay student standing up for Muslims during a time when the LGBT community was facing severe challenges. You remember some of those stories, right? So I think it's a really powerful thing to bring supporters who don't benefit immediately from something to express their support. So I want to offer you an assignment, okay? I want to break this down to 3 leadership exercises. Okay? Leadership exercise number 1 is, how would you engage people who do not immediately benefit from mosque in this community, in this public meeting? What story, what speech would you give to the psychology club or to the Jewish Students Association to encourage them to come out for this, to come out and be supportive? That's leadership assignment number 1. Leadership assignment number 2 is, what would you say to your own group of people who are already coming to this meeting? What hope would you offer them, knowing that you're outnumbered 100 to 5, and that people are going to be saying really ugly things about your religion, your community, and you need to, they look to you as a leader. You are the Jasmine of this group, and you need to offer this group hope. What would you say to them? And the third thing is, what would you say to the people who are opposed to the mosque? What story, what communication would you offer them to encourage them to change their minds? And I want to offer a suggestion there, is that I don't think anybody in the history of the world ever got their mind changed by being yelled at. Okay? I don't think anybody in the history of the world ever got their mind changed by being called racist or a bigot. So if you stand up with the microphone and point at those 100 people and say, you guys are just a bunch of bigots who are on the wrong side of history, my guess is that they're just going to double down on their position. You need to offer them hope you need to offer them a different kind of hope. You need to offer them a different kind of vision and inspiration. Right? Very often, when we disagree with somebody, something as fundamental as whether there should be a mosque or a synagogue or a church or whatever in a community, it's easy to call the people we disagree with bigots or racists or whatever. Well, I'll tell you something. That might allow you to express some of your righteousness, but it's not going to change their minds. So what would you say to people to help them change their minds? Okay? And I think our time is just about up.
We actually have 15 more minutes that the class runs. If you still have
Okay,
time.
so I had this scheduled for 11:30 to 12:30, and I have a phone call that I have to jump on.
No problem.
Unfortunately, right now. But why don't we take one last question, and then I've given you guys an assignment. Why don't you guys spend some time discussing that assignment? And I previously agreed with Dean Carlson that he's
Well, I could follow through of this. It would be like very good idea to give examples of civil rights movement and nonviolent resistance in India by Gandhi and Martin Luther King. Because both these groups didn't have much support, and like we started really small, but eventually that spread, and we're able to convince people of their ideas in a non-violent way. And even people who initially opposed them eventually sided with them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You know what? Now it's a 2-page paper, because first 100 pages is a study on what other great interfaith leaders have done, and using their work and their lives as an example. Because you're right. It's not like Martin Luther Jr. Marched for one day in 1955 after Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on that bus, and all of a sudden segregation ended. Right? I mean, other people have struggled for a long time to put us in the relatively fortunate positions that we are in. So looking back at other examples, I think is a really powerful thing to do. So look, I want to say thank you so much for adding inspiration to my day, for giving me things to think about, and for giving me a chance to at least virtually step back on the campus of Dominican University. And unfortunately, I got to go and jump on a phone call that is significantly less exciting than engaging with you. It's part of the job of running the organization that I run. I want to thank you for reading my book. I want to thank you for sharing with me your leadership struggle. I want you to always remember, right? Remember that the definition of being a leader is getting other people involved in things that you think matter. The definition of being an interfaith leader is getting other people involved in the positive engagement of religious diversity. Okay? Thanks again. Thank you for your time, and I wish you guys the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.